As we saw earlier, in the Views module, the term view refers to a collection of data that you specify, and a display is one of a series of possible definitions of how to render that particular view. Any given view could be rendered multiple different ways. To edit a view, you're going to specify one or more displays for that view, and then specify the format for the view, potentially specific fields to be displayed, filter criteria, sorting criteria, page settings including the path it should appear on and whether it should be linked to a menu, perhaps permissions, possibly a header, a footer, and if you're displaying multiple items, whether a pager should be used to page back and forth through the list of items. Now the format determines the layout for the view. We have choices of unformatted list, table, jump menu, HTML list, or grid. And for some of these formats, you will then control whether it displays content such as a teaser view, if you're using Display Suite, perhaps a layout specified by that module, or in some cases, individual fields. If you're going to specify individual fields to display, you're presented with a somewhat daunting list when you first look at it, because the View module shows you all possible fields that could be included in the view, which is somewhat more than simply the list of fields that you define for the content type. However, you'll find that each one of the properties is documented in line, and there's a filter interface up top allowing you to quickly locate any of the fields that you may have defined for the content type. Let's go in and take a look at creating a different type of view. So in the application, I'll go back to the Views module, and I'm going to add a new view. This view I'll call Book Grid, and I am going to show content as opposed to files or taxonomy terms or any of the other types of data I could choose. And I am going to show content of my book content type. I could narrow that by particular tags assigned to my individual nodes. I won't here, and newest first is good for a sort order. I'll accept Book Grid as the default page title, as well as path. However, I don't want to display an unformatted list, but a grid, and I don't want to show my teasers. Instead, I want to show specific fields of data, because what I want is a title over the book cover. I want to show 9 items per page in a 3x3 grid, and I do want this to be linked to my main menu. However, because I have additional fields to specify and I may want to control the grid layout, I'm going to continue rather than simply save and exit. Here in the full interface, I'd have the ability to define this page display further and possibly add additional displays. In this case, I want to take a look at what I have right now. If I scroll to the bottom of this interface, I see a preview of my grid, but it appears I've got 4 columns displaying the 9 items, and all I'm showing currently is the book title. So I'm going to go to my grid settings. I'll click on the settings, and while there are a number of style settings I could modify, in this case, I'm just going to change the number of columns from 4 to 3 and apply that change. When I scroll down, I'll see that the auto preview has updated, and now I have a 3x3 grid. But I'm not showing my book covers yet. And so I'm going to go to my Fields section, because in addition to displaying the content title, I want to show the book cover. I'll click Add to add an additional field. Well, there's a number of fields I could show. I know from my content type, the name of the field that I'm looking for is book cover. So I can type in a search string, find that specific field from my content type, and apply it to my display. Then I'm presented with settings to configure that particular field for my view. And I have a label by default, but I don't know that it makes sense to put the book cover label within my grid because images are self-explanatory. I can modify the image style from an original image to a thumbnail so that all my images are reconfigured to 100 by 100 no matter their original image size. And it probably does make sense to have my book cover link through to the underlying node. I'll make that change and apply it to my display. Scroll down to the auto preview, and now I see what I'm looking for, my book covers under the titles in a 3x3 grid. However, one more change I'd like to make is to see my oldest content first. So I'm going to go to the sort criteria, click on the default sort of post date descending order, and in the configuration screen, click to sort in ascending order instead, and save that change. Check the auto preview one more time, and now I see my older content appearing first. The last thing I'll check is the path. I see that this is going to appear at book grid, there will be a normal menu entry for book grid, and that anyone with the permission to view published content will be able to see this page. I'll save the change, click back through to the main page, and take a look at my book grid. From this grid, I could click on the image for any one of the items and see the full content of the underlying book node.